You're muted.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ann Holmes Davis. I'm Vice President of Planning and Program Development with the Detroit Area Agency on Aging. And I have with me our Planning and Program Development team, as well as contract management, to make your lives easier as you apply for funding that we have available for services. So we'll give you people a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. Well, we'd like to welcome you to our technical assistance workshop. And I'm pleased that all of you are taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. As I indicated earlier, I'm Ann Holmes Davis. I'm Vice President of Planning and Program Development at the Detroit Area Agency on Aging. Just want to sort of cover some basic things about the request for proposal and to also give individuals who aren't as familiar with our organization a little background information about Detroit Area Agency on Aging. Today, we will be covering, Frederick, a little information about the Detroit Area Agency on Aging. We'll talk about what the request for proposal for FY 2024 is all about, what some of the screening criteria is, who we serve as a target population, some of the areas of focus and service categories that we're planning to fund, as well as the levels of funding available. We also will sort of walk through some of the application guidelines and sort of note how you are to complete the application packet. We'll also have finance to sort of walk through how to complete the budgets, a line item budget, and the unit costs, fee for service form. And then note how we'll be accepting those proposals through our shared file, which is a secure grant portal. And we'll have a Q&A as well. Once we have this session, we will summarize any questions that are being asked so we can make sure that all applicants have access to that information. And just wanted to note that there is another session that's planned for Wednesday, May 10th at Sacred Heart Major Seminary from 10 to 12 as well. And that'll be via Zoom as well as in person at that facility, which is at 2701 Chicago in Detroit. The Detroit Area Agency on Aging has been around for over 40 years. We provide services to older adults through a mission that really focuses on educating, advocating, and promoting healthy aging to enable people to make choices about home and community-based services and long-term care that will improve their quality of life. That particular mission was initiated when we had our initial dying before their time findings, where we found that there was premature death in our community. Our vision is to create a community that cares for the vulnerable and advocates for the well-being of our constituents. And we abide by 5 key principles around servant leadership. And that includes making sure that we're serving the people in the community, that we have quality services, that we are always looking at ways to grow our network and our services, that we are good stewards of our finances, federal and state and local dollars, as well as always ensuring that we are excelling in anything that we do. Thus, we are CARF accredited, NCQA accredited, as well as accredited by the AADE for diabetes education. We're a private nonprofit organization, and our primary role, Frederick, is to plan, coordinate, and develop services and to make funding available from the federal and state level. Some of the services that we provide directly include information and assistance to our call center, options counseling to help people with their housing related needs, caregiver support, MAP, which is Medicare and Medicaid Assistance Program, benefit counseling, nutrition services, and that's congregate meals, home delivered meals, and liquid nutrition, holiday meals 4 times a year, and then community health and wellness oversight. We also have employment and training, project choice, care management program, My Choice waiver, and then My Health Link. We have a network of about 120 agencies that we fund and about 120 team members, full and part-time. We serve the city of Detroit, the 5 Grosse Pointes, Hamtramck, Harper Woods, and Highland Park. And in those particular communities, we serve about 153,540 individuals who are 60 plus, as well as adults with disabilities, age 18 and over, as well as veterans and caregivers, family caregivers. Some of the things that we target include not only providing caregiver support to family caregivers, but we also assist people who are grandparents raising grandchildren. And we try to make sure that there's a robust system, service delivery system in the community so that these targeted populations can be served. And we do have some Medicare and Medicaid services, including our telehealth program, which we launched a couple years ago, given the COVID-19 pandemic. Now I'll go over some of the specifics about our request for proposal for FY 2024. We are soliciting one-time only grants for aging services for FY 2024, which is October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. We are distributing about $1.3 million of American Rescue Plan Act funding, as well as some Older American Act funding as well. Now, one thing I want to point out, and we'll talk about this a little later, is that we are currently requiring our applicants and our providers to use performance-based contracting. And at this point, we are using a 75% fee for service and a 25% line item grant structure. But for those applicants applying for the first time and haven't been funded over the last 2 years by DAAA, they're required to do 100% performance-based contracting. And then one thing that I want to emphasize is that since we're providing a one-time only grant in a variety of different areas, we really want you to have a strong sustainability plan so that you can outline how you'll continue to provide the services that we fund if you're awarded funding. Some of the program requirements that we'll be looking for as we screen applicants initially is we're looking for nonprofits or for-profits or governmental entities that have been in business at least 3 years. And that means that that's your organization as well as individuals who may be contracting with you. We also want you to demonstrate that you're financially viable, that you have a balanced, a positive fund balance, and that you are also current on your local, state, and federal taxes. In addition, there's some other requirements that you'll find in the proposal checklist, and we'll talk about some of those things a little later. But those are some of the key screening criteria that we're going to be looking at when your applications are submitted. In addition, We would like you to be willing as an organization to maintain appropriate insurance levels and hold DAAA harmless. And you'll have to submit those a list of the insurance that you have or your insurance certificates. We don't want organizations who are debarred to apply. So the Office of Inspector General needs to give you clearance. You should not be debarred from providing Medicare or Medicaid services or federal backed funding services. And you also will have to be willing to do background checks on your staff, volunteers, and subcontractors and vendors. As indicated earlier, the contract period for this particular RFP will be taking place in our FY 2023 to FY 2025 planning and funding cycle, but the actual year of for your contract would be October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024. And that's all based on the availability of funding and contract compliance. Now, the deadline for this particular RFP round is 11:59 Eastern Standard Time on Friday, May 26, 2023. So you'll need to complete your application and submit it through our secure grant portal or shared file by that time. We will talk a little later about how you gain access to the shared file, which is a secured grant portal. It basically includes a folder with your name on it. You'll only have access to that, and you'll upload your application and your budgets and required attachments into that folder. And it's a secure folder. So Aquanetta will talk about that. And you won't get anything back from us saying that we've received your application, but it will be date stamped when we receive the application. We cannot accept any fax applications, emailed applications, or dropped off applications. They have to be submitted through the shared file or the secure grant portal. Now, in terms of incomplete and late applications, we cannot accept them because we need to have an application that will allow us to review all the criteria, all the information against the criteria that we have. And if there's significant incomplete sections, that wouldn't allow us to do that. Okay, some of the other proposal requirements that you should be aware of. We cannot accept handwritten applications. They have to be typed word process so that the reviewers can understand what you're submitting. If you scan documents, they must be clear and legible. Authorized personnel or official at your organization have to be the signer of the budgets and other forms that are required, because we want to know that it's been approved for your agency to submit the application. You also have to apply for service categories or areas of focus that are in the RFP. We won't be accepting proposals for things that are not even being solicited at this time. In addition, we need to make sure that you have all the required documentation and that you compare what you're submitting against the application checklist to make sure you've covered everything and that you've properly labeled the attachments in particular so that the reviewers can review the proposal consistently across applicants. We'll also want to note that your budget, your line item budget, and your unit cost fee for service form must be submitted, and those numbers should correspond. If you're applying for a community wellness service center funding, there's a separate community wellness service center budget that's different from the generic line item budget. And if you're applying for community, the new model, Community Wellness Center, that particular budget can be, you can use a line item budget and the unit cost fee for service for that application. And we'll talk about that a little later. Now I'm going to go through some of the program funding that's available or in the areas of focus. If you've had an opportunity to look at the application on our website, we did have an announcement that went out to all of potential applicants. And on the website, on the home page, as well as on the Becoming a Partner page, we have made all of the forms and the guidelines available. So if you haven't had an opportunity to go to our website, go to our home page, and it's DetroitSeniorSolution.org, and you'll see the announcement. And as you scroll down the page, you'll see additional information, including the links to all of the forms that you need. And there's also reference and supporting documentation that's there so that you can reference that information. And if you're a new provider, you can also fill out the service provider partner information to join the network. And that'll give DEEE information about, with your contact information and your phone number, but that's also going to be collected in the actual application. In this particular request for proposal, there are a variety of different services that we are trying to get funded through this request for proposal process. One of the things that we are planning to fund is case coordination and support that will allow us to serve returning older adults who are transitioning from incarceration to the community from prison. And there's $125,000 roughly for that particular service. So applicants who are interested in providing that service will use the case coordination and support service definition that's on our website under reference materials. It outlines what the case coordination support services needs to entail. And that particular proposal should outline how your organization plans to provide services to older adults who are returning from prison back into the community. There's also caregiver education, training, and support funding available, roughly $300,000. As I indicated, there's a operating program operating standards under references on our website that outlines what the definition of caregiver education, training, support is and what that service entails. You can also reference the actual application where we describe what's required to provide services to caregivers. And these services are to be provided to unpaid caregivers who need education, who may need a support group or other types of training to help them provide care to individuals who have dementia or other chronic illnesses or disabilities. Counseling services is another service that you can apply for. You can include substance abuse prevention or not. There's $100,000 available for counseling services. We did, through our last RFP round, solicit proposals, but no one was a taker. So we've put this particular service out in our RFP again. In addition, there's home repair services. There's $125,000 available for that particular service. There's basically a $2,500 cap on the max that you can include to serve older adults with that particular service. And this service is really focused on minor home repair and accessibility repairs that are needed in the home of older adults. Kinship support services is another service category that's included in this RFP. And those services include activities that can support caregivers, grandparents raising grandchildren. And there's $86,555 for that particular service category. Now, for the first time, the Detroit Area Agency on Aging has a regional definition called social determinants of health coordination. And under that particular service definition, we've tried to have some flexibility in what people can do to have more flexibility and ability for applicants to be innovative. And under social determinants of health regional service definition, there are 4 things that we're looking for. We're looking for applicants to submit something around intergenerational programs. There's $100,000 for that. And of course, intergenerational programs will be activities that would engage older adults and children or youth so that they can learn from each other and enjoy the common experiences. It can be educational, it could be recreational, it could be a variety of different things. So we're looking at some innovative strategies that can support intergenerational exchanges. Another thing that's available is information technology training for older adults. $75,000 is available. As all of you know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of older adults were struggling with trying to use Zoom, Facebook, learn how to use computers and iPads. So this particular service would allow an applicant to propose a strategy for making training available to older adults so that they can become more exposed to using technology. And so we're looking for some creative proposals to support that effort. Then we also have senior mobile dentistry services, and there's $100,000 earmarked for that particular service. This particular service can be dental services in the home, or it could be services that an older adult will get when going to a particular mobile unit and getting, teeth cleanings, dental cleanings, and other kinds of assistance. And again, we also have substance abuse prevention, and there's a roughly $100,000 for that service category. Now, under the Community Wellness Service Center applications, we're looking for 2 different types of programs. Currently, we have DAAA funds for community wellness service centers. So one strategy could be to apply for funding to provide community wellness service center services using Community Service Navigator, disease prevention, health promotion, and transportation services. That's our traditional model. Another strategy could be to provide services that use a different approach, and we have $100,000 available for that. And then we call that a new model. So given the fact that we have some ARPA funding available, we would like to explore how community wellness service centers can be provided differently than they are now. So I encourage you to look at the RFP language to look at how you could propose to provide either one of these service models. Now I'd like to take some time to sort of walk through what the application looks like, so that you have a sense of what you have to submit for this request for proposal round. When you go to our website on our homepage and look at the announcement and scroll down, you'll see links to a variety of different forms. And you'll need to download these forms and work on your application so you can submit it through our secured grant portal or share file. One of the things that you'll need to do is to prepare a general cover sheet that will allow your organization to have its authorized official, your executive director, your president CEO, or whoever is your authorized official, to sign off on the fact that your organization will comply with the requirements of DAAA and the state of Michigan as it relates to assurances, laws, and other compliance requirements. You'll also, once you complete that application and sign it, it's a fillable PDF. You'll have to download it, complete it, and then have it signed. That'll be the first thing that we'll see when we see your application. In addition, after you complete your entire application, you should use the proposal checklist and make sure that you've included everything that's required in your application. And you're to also include that proposal checklist with your application when you upload it. And then section 1 and 2 and 3, section 1 and 2 in particular, will require you to download the application template and to create a Word document following that application template and summarize and respond to the questions. So the first thing you would have to do under agency information is to describe your organization. Then you'll talk about how you manage your finances as an organization. You'll note who within your organization administers the services and what that staffing looks like. And then you'll note what kind of client grievance procedure or policy that you have. In section 2, the program information that you'll include will of course summarize the needs that you're trying to address in the proposal. You know, describe what the issues are and how you plan to address the needs depending on what you're applying for. For example, if you're applying for counseling, you would outline the need for counseling in the community, maybe provide some statistics about what that looks like for older adults or caregivers within our targeted area, and how you plan to address that need as an applicant. And there's some specific questions in the application template that you would answer to respond to that section. Under program and service description, you'll outline, provide an overview of your program, proposed program, describe how you're going to render services, note what part of the community that you'll serve. Will it be the entire DAAA service region? Will it be a particular target area within the DAAA region? You could even include a map if you would like. You would also describe the target population. You know, are you targeting older adults or caregivers, for example, or both? And then one thing that's new this year is, in this application is, how are you planning to respond to COVID-19 or rebuilding the infrastructure that may have been ravaged by COVID-19 pandemic, so that we see that you are lockstep with the environment that we're providing services within. Under project management, you'll also note how services will be, how the particular services that you're planning to render will be provided. You know, what staffing will be used, how will that staff provide the services that you're proposing to provide in the community. If you are planning to use a consultant or independent contractor, you should provide us with some information about that consultant or that independent contractor or vendor Detroit has to approve of any consultants or independent contractors that you're planning to use, because they are also to adhere to the requirements that your organization has to adhere to. So we want to know what kind of relationship that will be. We also want you to sort of outline the goal and objectives and the expected outcomes that you plan to achieve over a year-long period, and also outline what are the resources that you're bringing to the table other than DAAA funding, and how will you sustain those resources after the end of the grant period, during the grant period, and after the grant period. And, you know, one of the other things that you'll also need to include, of course, as I indicated earlier, is the line item of budget, which is also on our website, the unit cost fee for service form, which is a one-page Word document or PDF. And then all of these documents need to be signed. And you also need to reference the budget instructions as you develop the budgets, so that you make sure you're completing those forms appropriately. And Ami Guy will sort of walk through how to do this shortly. In terms of the budgets and the unit cost fee for service forms, just want to note that the funding that we're making available at Detroit Area Agency on Aging are federal funds. So, and there may also be some state dollars as well. But what's important is that any new applicant will have to provide a 10% local match. And if you're an existing provider, you'll have to provide a 15% local match. Now, the local match can be in kind and or monetary. If it's in kind, you have to note what that is and sort of calculate the value of what that means. For example, if you plan to use volunteers to provide a particular service in your community, you might say, okay, we're going to use 10 volunteers and calculate the minimum wage that's associated with using those volunteers based on the hours that they volunteer over the course of the year. If they're a higher level volunteer that's supporting you, you could note the rationale for having a higher value placed on that local match or the in-kind source. We also require that 5% of your budget includes program income. Program income basically would be voluntary donations or maybe a sliding fee scale resources that would come from the individuals that you serve. So make sure that you have the 10 or 15% local match, and this has to be non-federal local match, as well as the program income. Now, under fee for service unit costs analysis form, and even in the line item budget, we'll ask you how many clients do you project to serve and how many units of service. And the program operating standards or the regional service definition will outline what a unit is. So you're in compliance with those definitions. So you want to make sure that you include that in your budgets and also in the unit fee for service form. And as I indicated earlier, make sure you have the local match and the program income included. Some of the attachments that you will be required to include in your application packet are listed on the screen. And they're also something that you need to label. So the face sheet is included on the DAAA website. However, you'll need to download it and complete it. Insurance certificates or listing of insurance with coverages levels, that's something you would need to provide to us, but make sure that you label it attachment B, so that when the reviewers are reviewing your proposal, they know what's what. You can also include an organizational chart, your certified audit report, or an audited financial statement report if you don't have a certified or audit. That'll be attachment D. Any audit findings in the last year or so should be included in attachment E. Attachment F should include your IRS form 941 with proof of payment. Attachment G should be your IRS tax return, or it could be the 990 or the 1120. Attachment H should be your articles of incorporation for your organization, unless you're the city entity. And if you're a city entity, I would just note attachment H and then say City of Detroit Department of whatever, or Hamtramck or Grosse Pointe or whatever city would be applying. Attachment I would be your agency's 501c3 notification letter. Attachment 4 would be any independent contract agreement or consultant agreement that you're planning to use to render services. Attachment K would be your any job description. If you haven't hired someone, but you plan to hire someone to render services, but if you already have someone on staff, then you would just include a resume of those individuals who would be directly engaged in the program that you're proposing to render. You don't have to include resumes for your entire organization. It would just be those organizations, team members who would be engaged in rendering services. And also we have client rights and grievances policy. And then one thing they're asking is for you to include your cybersecurity policy or your information technology policy. We just want to know that you're doing your due diligence in protecting your organization from cybersecurity attacks and other scams that are happening technologically. So that's what those attachments look like. Now, we understand that there are some applicants who may be applying for community wellness service center services or community wellness center innovative models. So I have a couple of team members who will talk about some of the requirements for those applicants. Amber?
Hello, everybody, and thank you all for coming out to learn more about this opportunity for your organization. I'm Amber Williams. I work in the Health and Wellness Department. I'm a health and wellness educator and registered dietitian, and I am going to go over some of the information about our community wellness service centers and our evidence-based programs. So the Community Wellness Service Center has minimum requirements. And so some of those minimum requirements are you have to be providing services within our service area, which is Region 1A. Again, like Ann mentioned earlier, that's Detroit, the 5 Grosse Pointes, Hamtramck, Copper Woods, and Highland Park. So that's our Region 1A service area. And whatever your organization or consortium or collaborative is, the partnership must have a fiscal sponsor that meets this minimum requirements that we are talking about here today. The Wellness Center must have the ability to provide services that bridge that social and that health gap to address the social determinants of health, which we know are very important to our community that we're serving. The wellness centers have to have the ability to prepare a business plan, and that business plan to be prepared within the 3 to 6 months of the startup. of the program. They have to have the ability to include signed memorandums of understanding, or MOUs, as we call them, independent contract arrangements, and letters of commitment in your proposal as well. So that's really important, who's supporting you on your journey in providing services. You also have to have the capacity to enter into third-party reimbursement arrangements to grow the Community Wellness Service Center or the Community Wellness Center, depending on which option you choose to apply for. So we want to see growth. We want to see that you have the ability to expand your services and really be able to provide value-centered services to our community. Next, we're going to talk about our evidence-based programs. So what's required for evidence-based programs? So in order to provide these services, or to be a wellness centers, as Ann spoke about earlier, you're providing these evidence-based programs. So you need to be able to identify your staff and/or volunteers, depending on which one you choose, that are going to be trained in these evidence-based programs. So you need at least 2 to 3 program, staff or volunteers. And the reason is because most of these evidence-based programs, they require at least 2 people to teach the class. So they're co-facilitators for each class. The staff needs to be trained, or the volunteer has to be trained and must attend the trainings that are here with our organization in order to maintain your certifications in that program. You must have a budget that reflects evidence-based training. So for each class that you teach, your participants have to be trained in those classes, and each class has to have a set list of supplies that you need for each class. So in your budget, make sure that you are taking into account how much does it cost to train your volunteers or staff, and then how much does it cost to make sure you have all of the supplies needed to run the class. We have annual workshop schedules that are required for each agency. You need to tell us, what are you going to provide? What are you thinking for your service area is important? What do you need to provide for your participants? And make sure that you have a schedule for us prior to the start of the fiscal year. And that's what we're going to use also to look at your performance targets and establish your benchmarks. So you're required to provide a minimum of 8 evidence-based classes within the fiscal year with a minimum number of participants. Now, each class is different, but generally around 10 participants per class is usually the number that we're looking at. So the evidence-based program, we have an electronic data collection and submission portal. So you'd be required to put in all of your information into this electronic data collection portal for each one of your classes. So that's really important to make sure that you have, the staff to make sure that they are able to upload and enter into that data for the classes that you are teaching. We also have quarterly Community Wellness Service Center activities reports that are required. And we want to make sure that each wellness center has the ability to do workshops both in person and virtually. We know that when COVID came, we had to really shift to a virtual platform in order to still provide services to our communities. So with things opening back up, we want to do both in person and also have the ability to do virtual just in case something else happens again. And also we found that a lot of our seniors actually like the virtual platform still as well. So I think that's mainly the details on the what you need to provide the evidence-based program. So here are some of the programs. Maybe you've heard of them. Matter of Balance. We know that's important for our seniors who sometimes need extra support with balance to prevent falls. We have Enhanced Fitness for exercise. We have Tai Chi for arthritis and for fall prevention as well. Walk with Ease and Bingo Size, which is kind of a newer one, but the seniors seem to like it. So those are more of our exercise classes. So you can choose one of these that you'd like to provide to your participants. Then we have on our chronic disease management side, we have classes like PATH, Chronic Disease Self-Management Program. And we have Chronic PATH. So these classes talk about chronic diseases, and they talk about management, self-management, not just with the doctors, but how do you self-manage these diseases? We also have one for chronic pain because we know we have a lot of seniors that are, dealing with chronic pain in relation to their chronic disease. Next, we have our diabetes related programs. So we have the diabetes prevention program, also diabetes PATH, diabetes self-management program as well. So it's kind of like our other disease prevention, but with a focus more on diabetes as well. Next, we have caregiver education, creating confident caregivers or savvy caregivers, powerful tools for caregivers, aging mastery for caregivers, and developing dementia dexterity. So all of these are for our caregiver population to provide support and help for different genres. So sometimes it's for persons that are caregiving for those who have dementia. Sometimes it's just a class to make sure that the caregivers are taking care of themselves too. So providing them with the outlet and some support from other community caregivers, as well as yourself, who would be the teachers, or your volunteers who would be the teachers. So we offer these classes within the Detroit Area Agency on Aging as well, but we're looking to see what you think you need to provide for your service area and your local community. So that's just a high level of what we provide as far as evidence-based programs and what we're looking for you to provide if indeed you'd like to submit to provide these services. Thank you,
Amber. I just want to add that on the website, if you go to the homepage and scroll down, there are reference and supporting documentation, and there is a 36-page health promotion disease prevention programs guide that lists all of the evidence-based programs that are evidence-based and meet the requirements under Title 3D of the Older Americans Act. And so the services that Amber mentioned are just some of the evidence-based programs that you can make available, but there are other options. However, they have different requirements. So feel free to look at that guide. And if there's something different, you can feel free to include some other possibilities. But just remember, as people get trained to provide the services, there are requirements about how frequently they have to render those classes in a given year to maintain their certification. So if you propose to start something new, think long-term, short and long-term, about the ramifications of what you select. One question that came across was, is CCC available? That's something that the state discontinued supporting. And so we're still exploring if we will make Savvy Caregiver available in terms of training. So that's a discussion that we're having internally. We'll answer some additional questions soon. Thank you, Amber, and we'll have Gil to talk about congregate meals for those community wellness service centers who may be interested in using that service to attract people to the facility. Gil?
Thanks, Ann. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gilbert Lopez. I am the Director of Nutrition and Health and Wellness for the Detroit Area Agency on Aging. And as Ann mentioned, part of the programming that we try to offer at our community wellness centers is the congregate meal services. And some organizations have inquired about becoming congregate meal sites. And that's a separate process from our RFP bid process. DAAA is currently has a waiting list for designation for congregate meal sites and have made Hamtramck, Highland Park, and Harper Woods some of our priority areas just for lack of the amount of services that we provide in those areas right now. So we're really trying to focus on that. There's a number of requirements that are in place to become a congregate meal site, including compliance with federal, state, and local regulations. In addition to that, some of the other things that a facility would be required to provide would be the certificate of occupancy and compliance, certificate of handicap accessibility, the building fire safety standards and inspection report. They need to maintain a $1 million per occurrence general liability insurance with the AAA as an insured party. Has the current copy of the food service license as well. Building conditions and requirements for the facility, the kitchen itself, and for the dining room area. They need to be clean, bright, and have functioning equipment, including commercial refrigeration, a hand wash sink, accessible restrooms with self-closing doors, clean, bright, well-ventilated, and barrier-free dining and restrooms. Additionally, the kitchen should have a 3-compartment sink. And then the services that are going to be provided would need to be for individuals who are 60 plus, the spouse of an eligible individual that is 60 plus, or someone under 60 that is disabled, child of that eligible individual. The meals must be a 6-week rotation, or a 6-week rotation. And also too, they need to be provided hot, as well as they must meet 1/3 the DRIs. If you can flip the next one, Frederick. Quality check your application against the proposal checklist. Is that you, Ann? I'm sorry. That looks like you.
Yes.
So
Thank you, Gil.
no problem.
One of the reasons why I asked Gil to be a part of the discussion is the fact that typically if there's a community wellness service center, one of the centerpieces of that service typically is to provide some type of meal, whether it's a congregate meal or snacks, some type of food service. So that could be a good way to attract older adults, particularly the young at heart, to this facilities. So keep that in mind as you prepare an application for community wellness service center or community wellness center. And it's a different process, but you could let us know if you're interested in starting such a service. So now we've sort of walked through all of the things that we'll be looking for in an application. Just a reminder, after you have your general cover sheet and you have all of your, you've answered all the questions in the application template, you have done your budgets, both the line item budget or the unit cost fee for service form, and have attached all of the attachments and labeled them carefully. You should take all of that information and compare it to the proposal checklist that's online, making sure that you have included everything. And after you've checked off everything, I would include that proposal checklist as a part, the second thing in your proposal after the general cover sheet. And then you would make sure you have your budget, which would be Excel spreadsheets, and then your unit cost form. All of that information would be uploaded to the shared file, and we'll go over how do you do that shortly. One of the other things that you may want to do as you review your proposal against the criteria is to make sure that you know where the weights are, and to make sure you have addressed all of the questions that are in the application template in that Word document. And you can create a PDF of that for uploading. Don't write a lengthy, long proposal. That won't give you more points. What we're looking for is a proposal that answers concisely the questions that are asked, so that you can sort of tell a story about what you're applying for, how you're going to apply for it, what you want the outcomes to be as a result of providing that service, and then what it costs. Once you've pulled all that together, that's when you'll be uploading it into the shared file. So now we'll have Aquanetta just sort of walk through what that looks like, and then I'll come back later and talk about some of the other compliance issues that you should be aware of.
Good morning, everyone. And once again, I am Anquanetta Jones. I'm working with the planning department on the RFP process. And so how the process works when you're requesting access to the ShareFile portal, you will send an email to contractmgt@DAAA1A.org. Once you send an email to that particular email address, then one of our team members will give you access. When you get access, you will receive an activation link. So it's important that you click that link, and then I'm going to begin to share my screen so that you can see what it looks like, if that's okay.
As we get questions in from those participating in this session today, as well as other applicants, we will make sure that in the frequently asked questions, we'll provide responses so that all the applicants can benefit from the responses to the questions. And we'll make sure that you have instructions for the shared file at your disposal as well.
Yes. So once you tap on that link, you're going to be asked to create a password, because your email address is going to be your login. So you're going to create a password, and then once you create the password, it's going to take you to the sign-in screen. So once you go into the sign-in screen, you hit sign in. And so this folder will appear. And so you can look for your organization's name. So for example, as you can see, we have already a couple agencies that has requested access. So you would click on your particular agency's name. And once you click on it, I'm just going to use Second Ebenezer as an example. So you would click on your agency's name. Okay. And then as you can see, it says this folder is empty. So you would like to upload. So you want to upload all of your documents until this folder. So you want to hit, so all of your documents should be saved to your computer. Okay. So you want to hit browse files. And wherever your documents are located, you want to tap on it. I'm just going to use that one as an example. You can double click on it, and as you can see, it says upload it. Okay, I'm trying to move down on my screen here. Right, and so you can see that this file now is uploaded to the folder. Okay. And that's basically, it's an easy, smeezy process. And I can just ask that when you're uploading, that you name your documents per what you are uploading. So for example, if it's related to an attachment, I would say attachment 1, the name of the document, so that when reviewers are looking at the documents, we know exactly what we're looking at, so we don't have to assume what the document is. And that is it for me. Am I taking questions now, or am I waiting to the end?
Yes, if anyone has any questions, please ask your questions now. We do have Q&A at the end of the technical assistance workshop, but if anyone has any questions, I think that okay, someone asked, said something about, I have a new executive director who will need access to the portal. Will she see the documents I have uploaded with her login?
Yes. So if you request access for the executive director to have access to the folder, they will see all of the documents that you have uploaded. but you just have to ensure that you request access for that particular person.
Okay, another question about the shared file is, in fairness to DAAA, how long does it take to receive the response email from DAAA on access to the portal?
So Ann, what did we decide? Did we say 24 to 48 business hours?
If we have assigned staff to check contract management email daily. So they will be checking each day. So you should, if you requested say this morning, you should be able to get it by the end of the day. But if it's at the end of the business day, you're probably going to have access that next day.
So we would say, so 24 business hours.
Yes.
So you will receive a response within 24 business hours. And make sure
Now,
that you know 24 business hours, because if you request it late on a Friday, then you probably will not get access until Monday.
One thing that I wanted to point out is from May 1st through May 19th, we will be allowing applicants to have access to the grant portal. After that time, it will be closed. So we're really trying to encourage people to ask for access before May 19th, 5 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. Those are the only ones that I see that that deals with the share file, and we'll answer the other ones later during the Q&A period.
I see Jean Johnson, she has her hand raised. Jean Johnson?
Hi, I just tried to get into, how's everyone? I just tried to get into my share file and I can't get in.
What is your agency's name?
So it's under J Johnson at pkmanagement.com.
And did you send an email asking access to the request for funding folder, or are you talking about a different folder?
It may be that it may be a different one under DAAA. I did have one before, so I might need to send another request.
Right, so that's a really good question. Thank you, Jean Johnson, for bringing it up. So I know a lot of our agencies, they may have multiple folders because they may submit like their annual assessments, or they may have even applied for a request for proposal previously. So this is new. So every time you apply for a request for a proposal, we create a new folder. So with us creating a new folder, then you have to ask for access to that particular folder.
And we really encourage you to ask for access for each RFP round, because we don't want you putting documents in your AAA assessment folder,
Right,
or your the folder where you submit your monthly and financial or program reports, because we don't want that information to be lost or and not viewed. So it's important that existing providers ask for access for the FY 2024 RFP.
mm-hmm. And you will know that you have access to that particular folder, because let me share my screen again. Because this title will come up. So you will look for this title, and then you will look for RFP dash your agency's name. So that's how you know you're in the correct folder. So if you don't see this name or RFP in your agency name, you know that you may be in a previous folder or your assessment folder or a previous RFP folder. So you definitely want to make sure that you're in the correct folder.
Are there any other questions around how to get access to this secure grant portal, which we call our share file?
Yep. And just
What
as a
we'll do-
reminder,
what we will-
if you would like access, you have to send an email to contract mgt@DAAA1A.org. That's the only way for you to receive access to this grant portal that we call our share file. Yes, we will put the email in the chat. Thank you, Franklin Wright.
And you're muted.
The question is DAAA creating the RFP file in my folder, or do I create it? Aquanetta?
Yeah, so you created, so if you look at the instructions in the RFP package, it says, for example, budget or narrative. So that is something that you have to create. And as Ann said earlier, it has to be typed, it can't be handwritten. So those are documents that you are creating to upload into the folder, because these are documents that's telling us about you. So, and you know, and why we should, you know, partner with you. And so it's definitely, you know, about your organization, your agency, when you upload it.
Okay, and we're gonna put okay, thank you, Nicole. Nicole has put the contract management at DAAA1A.org in the chat. Now we'll go back to the PowerPoint. So we can go through the last few bits of instruction. And I'm glad that I have Abigail Perry here, VP of Contract and Quality Compliance. Some of the other things that you should be aware of as an applicant is some of the other things that you will have to comply with as an organization. So some of the things that you need to make sure that you are aware of is the fact that, as we indicated earlier, services need to be rendered in the targeted area, which is the DAAA service area. Or organizations can be located outside of our region. However, they have to have the ability to provide services within our region. The only exception would be our wellness centers or our adult daycare services. Those type of services have to be rendered within our region so that they're accessible to the individuals that we serve. In terms of compliance, you'll need to have a contract agreement with us. If you're awarded funding, you have to attend DAAA provider meetings and other trainings. Monthly, you'll have to submit a program and financial report and potentially NAPIS reports if the service category requires that of you. You'll also have to honor a HIPAA and Privacy Act for your program participants. And you will, of course, have to monitor your organizational employees, subcontractors, other business operation partners through SAM and the OIG system, so that we know that that your organization or your employees or vendors aren't debarred from providing federal services. Background checks are also required of your team members. And we also require that if you are funded, that you provide DAAA with recognition as a DAAA funded program or organization. One of the things I would just want to share very briefly is DAAA is over the starting this fiscal year, actually. We started transitioning our traditional aging providers to performance-based contracting. And so basically we're tying funding to actual the delivery of the services. And so to sort of transition or phase in the transition of providers from a grant that they would get monthly to fee-for-service, performance-based work reimbursement. For we basically try to tie performance to key performance indicators and to funding. The next screen sort of shows what that looks like for applicants who apply for funding for FY 2023. We have a 50% line item grant and a 50% unit cost fee for service arrangement. However, for FY 2024, for existing providers, that will be 75% unit cost fee for service and 25% line item grant. And for those who applicants who have never applied for funding from DAAA or who haven't been funded over the last 2 years, they're going to be held to 100% fee for service arrangement. So just in that general cover sheet, that's one of the things that your organization will have to sign off on, is that you realize that we're transitioning to or requiring performance-based contracts. One of the other things that I just want to share is as a reminder, assistance will be provided to those applying for funding through May 19th, 5:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you need assistance, you should reach out to us at contract management at daa1a.org, and that's CONTRACT management MTG at daa1a.org. That's also in the chat and also on the materials in our on our website. So we'll be answering questions and posting the answers under frequently asked questions through that period of time, and then we'll leave that up there online until the 26th of May, when the applications are actually due. And if you need information or forms, you go to our website homepage, and that's www.detroitsenior-solutions.org. And then when you scroll down and click on the links, that'll take you to the Becoming a Network Partner page. So all of the forms are there. We will be posting later today the instructions for the shared file, since there seems to be questions about that. So you'll have that to reference. And so now we'll start answering questions in the chat. And we will be summarizing these questions so that applicants who are not on the call today will have access to the information, as well as others. There is a second opportunity to participate in the technical assistance workshop if you have another team member who's going to be working on the grant proposal, or you know of other partners who may be interested. And that will take place on May 10th, Wednesday, May 10th, from 10 until 12 noon at Sacred Heart Major Seminary, which is at 2701 Chicago, Detroit, Michigan, 48206. Okay, let's look at questions in the chat. We'll start from the top. And if anyone else has any additional questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. That will help us to document the questions so we can make sure they're getting answered. So due time is 10:59 EDT. No, it's before midnight. The application is due on May 26th by 11:59 Eastern Standard Time or Daylight Saving Time. There's a question in the chat about are dental units falling under preventative care services or cosmetic as well? Abigail, you want to take that one on? Dental units falling under preventative. Our focus is on of course, preventative care.
Yep.
Not cosmetic services. Some of the key things, if you look at the RFP, you'll see some of the key things that we're going to be interested in is checking the older adults dental health or their oral health, dental cleanings, and things like that. We really expect that applicants who apply for this service to have some referrals and some relationships with entities who can provide some of these services at a low cost or for free. So if things like dentures, oral surgery, and things like that, that's not included. We're talking about basic preventative care.
And possibly like cavities and things, but you know, ideally they may also have some dental insurance coverage like Ann mentioned. And so we really are trying to this one is a new category, so we're going to be working through this one also as we go, but we're really excited to be able to fund something. So we're going to look at the proposals. Also, I just saw Linda's question, which Linda, your new ED will need access to the portal for normal services and then also for the RFP. I saw your question about do you create a mini RFP folder? That's going to be your RFP folder will be in the RFP share file, which Anquinetta showed. And then when she adds you guys the helm to that folder, then in that folder, you would create your folders. And so this is totally separate than where you submit your FSRs and things like that normally. We're not going to be looking in those normal folders for RFP documents. So everybody who's already funded or, you know, contracted with us needs to be very careful that you're not putting the RFP documents in your normal share file.
And if I can just
can you
add,
show that again?
yeah, I was gonna say, if I can
Okay,
just
thank you.
add, you want to make sure that you're looking at the title of the folders. And so let me let me share it again.
And we'll also post some instructions that you can reference. Because I know what you hear today may not be really clear when you're about to upload your documents.
And you can always reach out and ask us. I mean, you know, send an email to contract management if you have a question about it still.
Yeah, so when you want to make sure that when you're uploading your documents for this RFP, that is you're gonna see this folder. So you want to make note, you want to see this folder. Then you're gonna go down and find your agency's name. So it's gonna have RFP in front of it, dash, then your agency's name. Okay, so if it's if we can just use the ham, for example, you would look for this folder and then you would look for RFP dash the ham. Okay, and if you want more than one person to have access to the folder, please ensure that you include them in the requests so that they can see, you know, the documents uploaded, or if they can even upload documents themselves.
one of the things that I want to find out is Ami Guy is on the call. Does anyone have any questions about the budget? Because she can answer them prior to her leaving for another commitment. We do have budget instructions in the online on the homepage that you can reference. But if you have any questions about the line item budget or the Community Wellness Service Center budget, along with the unit fee for service budget, let us know. And you can reference that information, but if you have other questions, contact us at contractmanagement@daa1a.org.
One thing also, can I just say about the budget from the last RFP and doing the contracts? One thing that we consistently had to reach out for was clarification on the units and also making sure you have that local match in there when you're filling out that template, and then how many units you're gonna be providing. Keep in mind, it's service is being purchased, so with that, you're gonna be telling us how many units would we be purchasing for each service you provide.
And make sure that the units and the clients that you have in the budget, line item budget, align with is the same as your unit cost fee for service form. And there's also another section in the narrative where we ask that question. So, and you can explain how you arrived at those numbers. Make sure that everything aligns so that people aren't, the reviewers aren't confused about how many people you're proposing to serve and how many units of service you're providing. Again, in the online on the homepage, under request for proposal, under references and supportive documentation, the program operating standards for all the services are there. So you can click on that link and it'll take you to the minimum standards for services and describe the definition, the minimum requirements, and how a unit is defined. If it's a regional definition, and there are two under this RFP, then you'll see a regional service definition noted. One definition is community service navigator, which is locally defined by DCCC, and the other is social determinants of health coordination. So make sure you look at those standards, and it notes what the unit is and how that's defined.
Linda had a question in the chat that said, it's a great question. Is this in addition to our regular 23 to 25 RFP, or is this for our entire funding? This is
No.
separate.
Right. One thing that I specify in the request proposal, because I knew this was going to come up, these are different dollars. These are different. This is a different set of funds than what you're currently funded under your contract, under the 3-year contract. So if existing providers are interested, you can apply, but this is a separate funding from your current grant.
So Tabitha Goodner has a question. She just is asking, give me more clarity to performance-based. It's not clear to me. Does this mean monthly pay applications for the services rendered in the previous month, performance-based?
Okay. DCCC's contracts have always been performance-based. However, in order to tie activities to specific key performance indicators, we've elected to transition providers from a line item grant where you get like 1/12 of your grant award amount monthly to determining if you've rendered the service and then reimbursing you based on what you've actually done. So that's what we're calling it. We're putting a lot more emphasis on defining it as performance-based contracting, because under these funds, when you render services, you're reimbursed based on what you've actually done, or the service you provided and at what level. So in your proposal, you should sort of outline on a monthly basis, how many people do you expect to serve, and how many units do you expect to serve during that period of time. And then when you serve those individuals, you'll be reimbursed. It'll be tied to actual performance. Hope that answers your question.
And Linda asks, I noticed friendly reassurance is not listed. Is support for that program unavailable?
Under this request for proposal round, the services that appear in the RFP are the ones that you can apply for. Friendly reassurance was in our last round. But this particular RFP is only being made available to fund some specific services that I outlined earlier. So those include the areas of focus for this RFP include case coordination support services that will help older adults returning from incarceration into the community. And that's at $125,000. Caregiver education, training, and support. Roughly $300,000 is available for that. So that could be services for caregiver support groups or training that can help caregivers continue to provide that care to their loved one. Counseling services, and that may or may not include substance abuse prevention. Home repair services, kinship support services, or services for grandparents raising grandchildren. Under the social determinants of health regional service definition, we have intergenerational programs. That might be something that a wellness center an existing wellness center may be interested in looking at. Can we bring youth and seniors together so they exchange experiences and knowledge? Information technology training for older adults. That's designed to provide training for older adults who may not know how to use a laptop or a computer or a cell phone, iPhone or Android. They may not know how to do grocery shopping. There's a variety of different things that you can do to incorporate under that particular service. As you know, with the pandemic, that's one huge finding that that's a lesson learned. Older adults had to pivot from in-home services or in-person services to using technology, and that was a challenge for them. And then there's also senior mobile dentistry services and substance abuse prevention. So those are the things that you can apply for, in addition to Community Wellness Service Center, the traditional model, or Community Wellness Service Center, the new model. The other RFP round that we implemented in the summer of 2022, that was for the 3-year grants. And then during that period is when we had the friendly reassurance and some of those other services.
So Anne, Franklin Wright asked, if a provider is funded for the same service category for which they are currently being funded through DAAA, will there be a separate PPR and FSR or will everything be combined for the monthly reports?
It says if a provider is funded for the same service category.
Yes,
Can they provide an example? Because none of this, okay. I guess the example would be kinship. support. That's something that we would probably look at combining, but that's something we have to look at when we get there. But that's probably something that we would probably look at combining, so you wouldn't have to do two separate reports. When that's something that I'm sure that Abigail would support, is if you're applying for additional dollars for something that you're already doing, we would probably amend your contract if you were awarded more dollars in that service category.
Right, me may be able to speak on it better, but that was my thought, is if you're funded for the same category. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem like we could do one FSR.
But one thing that I want to point out, and I don't know if she's still available, but one thing that I would want to point out is there will be an expectation that there's additional service
Services,
rendered and additional clients. We would not want those additional dollars to be serving the same number of individuals. Ami?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, so that is correct, because if, let's say Franklin Wright decide to apply for kinship again, then they will have to put the amount they are requesting plus the clients and unit they will be serving under that amount. So now, if let's say we approve it, then we will be combining not only the dollars, but also the unit and the clients.
But it would be
But if
additional.
everything will be submitted under one FSR, but we will be combining, because if the dollars amount increase, there is an expectation also that the unit and the client will increase. So whatever you submit now will be added to what you already have.
And remember that the grant dollars for this RFP round would be starting October 1st, 2023 through September 2024. So that would be additional. It will be what you would project to do next year and additional for next fiscal year coming up, not this fiscal year.
Right, and that may be something we further discuss after funding is awarded. Because there's definitely, if you're funded in the both categories, it's both RFPs. If you're funded, we'll definitely have to, probably have a separate meeting for that to go over everything, which, we usually do when we're doing contract signing anyways.
Right.
But also, one thing I just wanted to remind everybody, when you're doing your proposal and your budget, just make sure, if you are saying, Ann mentioned there's about 300,000 available for that particular category. If you're saying that you want $300,000 and your funding is for 20 clients, you got to really look at that. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your budget, that it's got to match what you are saying you're going to fund, and how you're going to impact the community.
Okay, I see another question.
It does say, when will we be required to complete the 23-24 regular RFP?
There won't be a 23-24 regular RFP. In October 2022, the organizations who applied for funding, who were awarded funding, that was for 3 years. So if you're compliant with your contract, we only do that every 3 years. With ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan Act funding being made available under this public health emergency, these are additional dollars that we are making available in the community for new services. So that's why we're having another round. But the planning and funding cycle that started in 2023, October 1, 2022, through the end of this September, that's 1 year funding. It's renewed for 24 and then for 25 if you are compliant. For this RFP, these are one-time only dollars, one-time only funds. So this will be a grant only for October 1st, 2023 to the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, 2024. After that, there will not be additional funds. Keep that in mind. If you apply, make sure you build a strong case for how you're going to sustain the services that you start under this grant in the future. So you should outline other funding sources, any voluntary donations, in-kind resources, partnerships, whatever that's going to help you sustain what you start, because we want the programs to continue. Another thing I want to share is in the near future, there's going to be another call for proposal separate from this process for existing providers to assist with technology, infrastructure, and things like that, aside from the training that we have included in this RFP. So you'll be getting information about that soon. And the focus is going to be on, how do you address cybersecurity and HIPAA and modernization of your programs and things like that. But that'll just be for current GAAA funded entities.
Okay, so
Any
Linda
other
asks,
questions?
the current community wellness service centers can count on current year funding being carried over for 23, 24, and 24, 25?
Yes, if you are compliant with your contract, those are 3-year grants. So last September, when, in the fall, when we had the RFP, those were 3-year contracts. They're renewed annually. So prior to the end of the fiscal year, GAAA will be meeting with providers and if you're compliant, we'll just be updating your budgets and your goals and objectives. Those are 3-year grants. All that's needed is renewal of your budgets and your work plan with your goals and objectives. Any other questions?
I saw that Tabitha had a question, and I just wanted to make sure. She said course trainings. When are those trainings scheduled for the inclusive courses? And I just needed clarification on that question. Are you referring to evidence-based classes or something different?
Or are you talking about the information technology classes for seniors?
No, the evidence-based, great day to everybody. The evidence-based where you stated that the trainers have to be trained, and this being from October to September of next year. I need to program in that training for those trainers for the courses we're providing or proposing to provide.
So would you like for me to answer that, Ann?
Sure.
All right, so really what it does is it depends on the classes that you choose to teach, that you're proposing to teach. So each one of the classes has a different accrediting body. For example, the DPP program, they are accredited by the CDC. And there's different diabetes prevention program, sorry. And they are accredited by the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. And there are different organizations that are qualified and selected by the CDC to offer trainings. So that will be the organization's responsibility to go on the website, like for the CDC, diabetes prevention programs, look at all of these qualified organizations that can train them to teach the class and schedule whatever works best for your organization, whatever time works best for your organization to get your staff members trained. So for that part, initially, when I said you have to be trained for the classes, have your, do your budget line item to pay for the training, it depends on what class you want to be trained for. So each one of them has a different accrediting body where you have to go and be trained. Some of them we can train organizations for, like PATH and DPAP. We can organize a training within our agency for sites who are interested in providing some of those classes as well. So essentially, it's you're taking a look at the websites of the class you wanted to teach, looking to see when their trainings are, and then picking according to your schedule what works best. If some of the trainings, like I said, like the PATH programs, we offer trainings for, you would coordinate that with us.
But on the website, if you go to the homepage and you go to the RFP, under references and supporting documentation, there's a 54-page document called Health Promotion Disease Prevention Programs. It's through MDHHS, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. It lists all of the programs and what's required of them. And these are the ones that are allowable because they're evidence-based. So you may want to take a look at that handbook. So you can look at what is out there. And then you have to reach out to those entities or the community health and wellness program if it's something that we do.
Right.
Yeah, the training that we provide.
And then also for so there will be, I guess, depending on how long you all decide you wanted to even pass the funding date, like Ian was saying, it's a year. Like for sustainability, if you all want to continue to provide some of the classes that we provide the trainings for and like reaccreditation for, I guess that's something we can work out past your grant period. If you still want to keep providing those services, we can, work out something where we can continue to help you keep your certifications for those classes.
But in your proposal, you should sort of outline what your plans are.
Right.
And typically, the disease prevention classes are offered under our Community Wellness Service Center, our Community Wellness Center umbrella. But one thing that we will be doing separate from this process, given the fact that we lost some of our trainers because of COVID-19 pandemic, our Community Health and Wellness Department and our Nutrition Department as well are looking at how we can rebuild the evidence-based classes, the congregate meal sites, and some of the other infrastructures that were impacted negatively by the shutdown of the services in our community. So there are several different pathways to getting these evidence-based programs going again. Thank you for your interest.
Linda just asked another question, evidence-based program question. Is DAAA looking into licensing for the Aging Mastery Program? So we are currently teaching that program right now. We do have clients that are going through, and if I'm not mistaken, Linda, don't you all offer this program, or haven't you all offered this program?
Linda, are you referencing the caregiver modules or the older adult modules?
Right.
No, we were interested in the older adult model, and yeah, we had a licensing,
Right.
but it's expensive to maintain. So I don't think we still have it active. I know at one time, I thought in one of the meetings, DAAA was looking at the overall $3,500 licensing and then allowing us to be the additional 500 for additional sites. I didn't know if that was still possible.
That's something we can take a look at, because so far, there's only been one entity that was interested in the Aging Mastery program for older adults. And then DAAA took on the caregiver modules. So if you elect to apply, that's something that you all can propose in your strategy. Any other questions? Well, if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to contract management at gaa1a.org. There's also a second session on Wednesday via Zoom as well as in person. And we'll summarize responses to the questions that were asked today. Thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate your interest in finding out about the RFP and for applying for funding. We wish you well on your submission. Thank you. Have a great day. If there are any other questions. Have a great day. Thanks, team. Team DAAA. One
Thank
down,
you.
one more to go.
You're welcome, Ann.